I was juggling a toddler-sized gift bag, a foil pan of lasagna, and my son on my hip when I saw the note taped to my parents' red front door. It was white printer paper, big block letters in thick black marker, centered under the wreath my mom hangs every year. Real grandchildren only. Don't knock. The house looked the same as always. Plastic deer with a light-out eye. Icicles strung a little crooked. The brass kickplate my dad polished every Thanksgiving. I could hear laughter inside. Chairs scraping, the soft clink of plates. I stood on the porch step where I took prom photos, my hands going numb under my gloves, and felt my throat close. Ross reached for the wreath, then read the sign and stilled. He's 6. He can sound out real. His mitten tugged my sleeve. Am I not real, Mama? My mouth opened, and something small and helpless clawed at the back of my tongue. I swallowed it. You are the realest thing I have, I said, voice steady like I'd practiced for hard days. I tucked his beanie over his ears and kissed the spot his hair always whirls. My fingers were shaking against his warm cheeks. They knew we were coming. I'd sent the group text with the time and the casserole. I'd labeled every present last night with neat tags, to Nana from Ross, to Papa from M. His little hand had pressed hard on each sticker. He'd made a card with a snowman that leaned to one side, and 3 stick arms because more hugs. The porch light buzzed. Inside, someone turned up the music. My brother's laugh rose over it. I could picture the living room. The tree heavy with old ornaments, the stockings with stitched names, Carter, Mia, Logan hung in order. The space where Ross's would have gone sat blank last year. I'd told myself they'd fix it this time. There wasn't room in me for an argument on that sidewalk. There wasn't space for me to be the one to cry. I shifted Ross to my other hip. I set the lasagna back in the car. I took one envelope out of the glove compartment, the one I'd addressed in my neat office handwriting, and laid it carefully on the doormat beneath the commandment they'd written to their daughter and her kid. Then I smiled at my boy, like this was a game we won by not playing. Hot cocoa at home? I asked. He nodded. He kept looking at the door, at the sign, at me. I tightened my hold like an answer and walked back to the car. When we pulled away, my rearview mirror held the white paper and the pretty wreath together, and it felt like seeing the inside of something ugly finally showing on the outside. The next morning, at 7:22 a.m., their screams woke the entire street when they opened that envelope. I didn't have to be there to know. The neighbor across the street texted me the minute she heard it. I am 36 years old and live in Dayton, Ohio. I love my job because we're a small but friendly team. It's the kind of job where you know everyone's birthday, because you help everyone and everyone helps you as best they can. I am divorced. I have one son, Ross, whom I adopted in May after 2 years of foster care, court hearings, and the kind of waiting that teaches you to breathe with your chest. Money has always been the way I helped my family. 7 years ago, when my dad got laid off from the plant, I opened a joint account at their credit union. It made sense. I balanced ledgers for a living. I set it up to auto-draft $650 every month toward their mortgage. Utilities averaged $240. I stuck those on auto-pay too. When their internet went down, I added the bill. When their car insurance lapsed, I paid $1,120 to catch it up. I put them on my Costco membership, then on my phone plan when my mom's old flip died. When the roof leaked in March, I wrote a $6,500 check to the roofer from that joint account, then an extra $800 for unexpected plywood. I transferred $150 every Friday, titled Groceries, because my mother swore fresh fruit was too expensive otherwise. I bought cousins' day passes to the zoo and the water park every summer. In 2021, I paid $3,600 for a Disney trip that I didn't even go on because we'll manage the kids. My brother and sister posted 100 photos. Ross wasn't in any of them because he wasn't in my life yet. Still, the way they thanked me was tagging me on Facebook. They never saw those transfers as kindness. They saw them as a baseline. When I forgot to approve the gas bill one month, because Ross had a fever and we were up all night. My mom called at 6 a.m., panicked like I'd burned the house down. The thing that always sat wrong was how being their ATM didn't buy Ross a seat at the table. He came to us first as an emergency placement with a backpack of boys' size 4T clothes, even though he wore a 6. He had a cough that lasted weeks and eyes that studied you like a test. We brought him to my parents the first time with a bakery pie and all the caseworkers' notes. My mom smiled the way people smile when there's a camera. He's sweet. My dad nodded at a spot over Ross's head. Later in the kitchen, my mom lowered her voice. "We'll keep your room as it is," she said, "just in case." I let little things slide. At Thanksgiving last year, there were handmade place cards at the kids' table, Carter, Mia, and Logan in sparkly ink. There wasn't one for Ross. My mom ran to the junk drawer and wrote Ross's name on a blank index card. The pen smudged. "We didn't know if he'd come," she said, even though I'd confirmed twice. I tucked the smudged card in my purse, like proof of something, and threw it away in the gas station parking lot because I didn't want to be the person who kept a catalog of petty slights. Then, it got less petty. When the adoption date was set in May, my mom told me not to make it a big thing because real family knows what matters without the courthouse. She said she'd watch the other grandkids instead and take them to ice cream to celebrate. Ross heard that part. He asked if his ice cream counted. I kept paying. I paid for my brother's trip to Florida when his transmission died. I paid the $450 copay when my dad needed a crown. I bought my parents a new couch $2,000. $100 on Labor Day weekend, after my mom sent me photos of her back hurting on the old one. I told myself I was fixing stress so they'd be softer around Ross. I told myself stability would grow them into kinder people. 2 weeks before Christmas, I said no for the first time. My mom sent the annual text. Renewing the season passes for the grandkids. Put it on the joint. The passes were $829 for the package she liked with meal plans and photo add-ons, because memories. I wrote back, if Ross is included, yes. If not, no. She didn't reply. Later, my sister texted, "You know he's not the same." It confuses them. I stared at the 3 dots flashing and vanishing for 5 full minutes and felt something old in me sit down and fold its hands. I didn't cancel anything then. I didn't make a speech. I just didn't send the transfer that Friday. They froze me out. My mom posted a Grandkids-only Secret Santa in the family group and tagged everyone but me. I asked if Ross was included. She left me on red. My sister asked in a separate chat if I was mad or hormonal. My dad texted me a thumbs up like a shrug. I called my cousin Steph and said, "I think they're going to make Christmas meaner than usual." Steph said, "Do what you have to keep that kid safe." I printed a few things from the credit union the next day and slid them into a manila envelope. I put the envelope in my glove box. It felt dramatic. It also felt like putting your insurance card where you can find it before you drive in a storm. After I set the envelope on their doormat, I buckled Ross into his booster. His cheeks had gone blotchy from the cold, and the almost cry he wouldn't let out. He had a wrapped present for Nana on his lap, a candle we picked out at Target that he chose for smelling like pancakes. He tucked it under his coat like it was made of glass. On the drive home, he watched the dark houses with their windows warm as fish tanks. "Did we do something wrong?" he asked from the back. He stretches his vowels when he's trying not to cry. "No?" I said. "We did nothing wrong." I said it again, to hear what it sounded like out loud. I pulled into our driveway, and my neighbor Trina waved from her porch, a mug steaming in her hand. She saw Ross's face and didn't say anything dumb like, "Cheer up," or "It'll be fine." She just opened her door wider and said, "I made way too many cookies." We took 2. Ross picked the one with a crooked tree and held it like it could fix the day. Inside, I set the lasagna on our table, lit the cheap candles I'd forgotten in a drawer, and made cocoa with extra marshmallows. Ross brought out the card he'd made for my parents, the snowman with 3 arms. He put it carefully on the mantel next to the thrift store Santa we painted. "Can we mail it?" he asked. "We can," I said. I didn't reach for an envelope. There is a certain relief that comes after the worst thing you imagined actually happens in exactly the way you pictured. My hands stopped shaking. The house felt smaller and safer than it had an hour before. I put Ross to bed in his new rocket ship pajamas and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the smell of cocoa and lasagna and cold air still on me. I opened my email and saw the message from the credit union, confirming what I'd done yesterday in person. On December 23rd, I had walked into the branch on Linen Avenue with my folder of documents and the tight smile I use for vendors. The woman at the desk recognized me. I'd been in 100 times to file transfers, to ask for printouts when my mom couldn't find the bill. I handed over my ID, the account number, and the joint account paperwork we'd signed back when temporary felt like a timeline and not a lifestyle. I need to close this account, I said. Today? She asked. Today. She asked if I wanted to keep it open for automatic payments. No, I said. I need it closed. She asked if the other parties knew. They will, I said. I moved $8,416.23, the balance I hadn't already paid out for the month, into my personal checking. I signed the closure form. She printed a letter on bank letterhead that said, effective 12/24. Account ending in 3,417 is closed at the request of primary holder account Marin. No further transactions will be processed. She slid me the 2 spare debit cards linked to that account and a small pair of scissors. I cut them in half. I didn't make a speech to anyone then either. I took the letter, the card halves, and a sticky note on which I wrote in my office handwriting, "You're off my accounts. I won't fund a family my kid isn't part of." I sealed them in a plain envelope. I didn't write anything else. When I left the envelope on their doormat under their sign, I did it because I'm done asking people to pretend my kid is invisible while withdrawing rent from my bank. It wasn't a trap. It was paperwork. At my table that night, I clicked the email confirmation from the bank again and again because it felt like pressing a bruise. It read the same every time. The joint account was closed. The auto draft to their mortgage would not run on the 1st. The Friday groceries transfer would not arrive. The utilities set to auto-pay from that account would not be funded. The cousins' passes would not be renewed from money that was never theirs, no matter how many times they decided to make it feel that way. I walked down the hall and checked on Ross. He sleeps with his hands balled under his chin like he's holding on to something small. I wanted to wake him and promise him I'd never let anyone try to write him out of a family again. I didn't wake him. I tucked the blanket tighter. I took his snowman card from the mantel and put it on the fridge with 2 magnets, one shaped like a strawberry, one like a star. My phone buzzed once on the counter, then went quiet. It was my cousin Steph. "Saw your mom's post. Here if you need bodies for tomorrow." I didn't have to ask what the post said. It'd be something soft and mean, like prayers for hearts that turn away from their own. I slept better than I had in weeks. In the morning, at 7:24, after the neighbor's text, "Your parents just freaked out on the porch. You okay?" I made pancakes. Ross carried the syrup to the table like treasure. We ate in our pajamas, the tree lights on, the house quiet except for the sound of forks. When he asked if presents waited somewhere else, I said, "They wait right here." By 8 a.m., my phone was already exploding. 3 missed calls from Mom. 5 from Dad. A flood of texts in the family group chat. My sister, "You closed the account on Christmas morning. Who even are you?" My mom, "You could have talked to me. The mortgage is due. The lights will get turned off. You are punishing us because we have boundaries." My brother, "This is about your weird kid, isn't it? Don't take it out on our parents." I set the phone face down. Ross was on the floor with his new Lego set, building the same ship 3 different ways, humming to himself. Every few minutes he looked up to make sure I was still there. I was. At 9, the doorbell rang. Trina stood at the window, ready to block whoever showed up. Steph had already warned me she'd sit awkwardly on my lawn if my parents tried anything. But it wasn't them. It was Aunt Carol, wearing the kind of expression that meant judgment had arrived before the food. "They're beside themselves," she said, stepping inside. "You humiliated them." I nodded. "They left a sign on their door telling my son he isn't real." She waved that away. "You know how your mother is with words. Yes, I said. I do, and I'm done paying them to act like that. She looked around my kitchen as if she were taking inventory. They're saying you canceled everything. I closed one account. It was in my name. I'm not their backup bank. I won't fund a family my kid isn't part of. She hesitated. They're saying you're vindictive. I'm not. I'm tired. That finally silenced her. She left with a bitter, well, Merry Christmas then. Like somehow it was I who owed an apology. The second she was gone, I texted Steph to come in. She arrived with bagels, paper plates, and her boys, and the house filled with a loud, easy noise of children who know how to make themselves at home. Ross relaxed the moment he saw them. Can I show them my rocket? He asked. Please do, Steph said, ruffling his hair the way he likes. My mom called again. This time, I sent one message to the family group chat and pinned it. I closed the joint account. You are off my accounts. When you are ready to apologize to Ross and treat him as your grandson in all ways, we can talk. Visit's done. Then I turned on Do Not Disturb. At noon, my brother posted a blurry photo of my parents on Facebook with a caption about some people choosing money over family. The comments turned into a circus of relatives picking sides. I didn't join in. Trina looked at the screen and said, Imagine writing real on a sign about a child. I hope the marker stains their fingers. Around 2, my mom came anyway. She stayed at the edge of the lawn in her good coat and called, Can we talk? Trina touched my shoulder. Do you want me to be mean? No, I said, and stepped onto the porch so Ross wouldn't hear. I don't know why you hate us, my mother said. You closed the account on Christmas. I don't hate you, I told her. I'm protecting my son. He is my family. You left a note on your door. You told me exactly who you are. We were just trying to have a space for the real cousins, she said, like this was reasonable. It's confusing for the others. I let the silence sit until she ran out of words. I won't fund a family my kid isn't part of, I said. You're off my accounts. No extra conditions. No speech. No compromise. She made the face she makes when she realizes she has lost. Your father will have a heart attack, she said, then turned and walked away. I didn't follow. I went back inside and closed the door gently. Slamming it would have made me feel like a teenager, and I wasn't one anymore. That night, I checked the credit union app. One line stared back at me. Account ending in 3,417. Closed. It was small on the screen, but it felt like someone had opened a window in a stale room. 2 weeks later, on the day we usually drove to my parents' late Christmas gathering, I set 6 folding chairs around my own table. 2 stayed empty on purpose. Not to prove a point, just because that was the honest shape of our life now. Steph came with her boys and a bag of oranges. Trina brought cinnamon rolls and a joke about starting a union. My friend Danny dropped by with a board game and left with lasagna. Ross wore the blue sweater with a rocket on it and ran through the house laughing with Steph's youngest until they collapsed on the floor, breathless. Later, he handed me a drawing of our house with a crooked tree and stick people labeled me, Mama, and Steph. He added a cat, even though we don't have one. I hung it on the fridge next to the snowman. There was a lesson I didn't know I was learning. For years, I confused funding people with loving them. I thought if I made their lives easier, paid the mortgage, covered the groceries, bought the passes, they would eventually have enough softness left over for my son. I was wrong. Generosity cannot purchase dignity. And stability, when given to unkind people, just gives them a more comfortable place to be unkind from. Here's what I know now. The moment you start paying to be included, you've already been excluded. I was buying a seat at a table that quietly decided my child didn't belong there. No transfer amount was ever going to change that. I just kept raising my bid on something that was never for sale. The second thing I learned is that protecting your child is not the same as punishing your family. Closing that account wasn't revenge. It was honesty made financial. It was finally letting my actions match what I already knew. When you stop participating in a system that harms someone you love, that's not cruelty. That's clarity. And the hardest lesson, the one that sat with me in the quiet kitchen that Christmas night, You cannot logic or generosity your way into someone's heart on behalf of your child. You can only decide whether you're willing to keep walking them through doors that say they aren't real. So, here's what I'd tell you. If you're somewhere I used to be, stop waiting for the people who should love your child to finally start. Stop funding the version of family that erases them. Find the people who open the door wider, not because they have to, but because they want to. Build the table yourself. Set the chairs. Leave two empty if that's the honest shape of things. Your child is watching how you respond to the sign on the door. Make sure what they see is someone who walked away without flinching, made cocoa and meant it when they said, "We did nothing wrong." That's the whole lesson. You can stop paying for what was never yours to buy.